PMD-6, the wooden Soviet anti-personnel mine. Introduction. The PMD-6 is one of the simplest and most notorious Soviet anti-personnel mines of the Second World War. Unlike metal-cased mines such as the POMS or OZM series, the PMD-6 was built primarily from wood, making it both cheap to produce and extremely difficult to detect with standard metal detectors. For NATO and Allied forces, the PMD-6 represented a classic example of the Soviet emphasis on quantity, simplicity, and denial of enemy mobility. Even decades after its introduction in 1941, the PMD-6 and its variants remained in service across Soviet-aligned nations and insurgent movements worldwide. Design and characteristics. Structure. A simple wooden box measuring approximately 20 centimeters by 9 centimeters by 5 centimeters with a hinged lid. Explosive content. Typically loaded with 200 grams of TNT. Fuse. A pressure-activated MUV pull fuse. When sufficient pressure, 5 to 10 kilograms, is applied to the lid, the fuse striker releases and detonates the charge. Detectability. The wooden casing made the mine nearly invisible to early Allied mine detectors, which were calibrated for metal. Only the fuse components contain small amounts of metal. Variants. The PMD-6M featured minor improvements, such as reinforced casing and better sealing against moisture. Tactical role. The PMD-6 was employed as a pressure mine, intended to wound or kill advancing infantry by footstep activation. Soviet doctrine used it to protect defensive perimeters, deny enemy access to key terrain, bridges, roads, trails, support larger minefields in combination with anti-tank mines. Because of its simplicity, Soviet engineers could mass-produce and deploy tens of thousands of PMD-6 mines in a short time. Operational history. World War II. The PMD-6 was introduced in 1941 during the German invasion of the Soviet Union. It proved highly effective during the Battle of Moscow and subsequent defensive operations, slowing down German infantry assaults. The wooden construction allowed Soviet partisans to manufacture improvised copies in occupied territories. Cold War and beyond. Supplied in large quantities to Warsaw Pact and Soviet allies. Widely used in Vietnam, Afghanistan, Korea, and Africa. Because of its wooden body, many PMD-6 mines remained dangerous long after conflicts ended, as TNT remained stable even when the wood casing decayed. NATO assessment. From a NATO perspective, the PMD-6 was unsophisticated but deadly. Reports highlighted advantages: cheap, easy to produce, difficult to detect. Disadvantages: vulnerable to moisture, short service life, no anti-handling devices. Despite being outdated by the 1960s, the PMD-6 was still encountered in global conflicts. NATO classified it as a persistent, low-tech threat, especially in regions where Soviet surplus mines were distributed. Humanitarian impact. The wooden body of the PMD-6 decays over time, making detection and clearance extremely dangerous. The mine can remain lethal for decades, as the explosive content remains active even when the casing has rotted away. Civilian casualties from PMD-6 mines have been documented in Afghanistan, Cambodia, Angola, and Chechnya. For demining operations, these mines are especially challenging because they leave little detectable metal signature. The PMD-6 anti-personnel mine exemplifies Soviet wartime ingenuity, a weapon that could be mass-produced under desperate conditions, effective against infantry, and nearly impossible to detect with contemporary technology. Though technologically primitive, the PMD-6 inflicted heavy casualties on Axis troops in World War II and continued to threaten NATO and civilian populations throughout the Cold War and beyond. Today, it stands as a stark reminder that even the simplest designs can leave a deadly, long-lasting legacy.